Masechet Yevamot, Daf Lamed Chet, we're at Lamed Zayin Amud Bet. Well, we're in the middle of talking about a series of cases regarding inheritance law, when we have someone who is a safek and we're not sure who the father is. So one of the cases we saw earlier, and we're going to have now a variation of this case, is where Reuven is married to Miriam and he dies, and Miriam then goes and does Yibum. Shimon does Yibum with Miriam, but does not wait the requisite 3 months. And turns out Miriam is pregnant and has a child, and we are not sure if this child is from Reuven or from Shimon. Okay, at this point, we have to, Shimon also dies before Reuven's estate is divvied up. And so now there's a claim between Mr. Sefek and the children of Shimon, where Mr. Sefek says, it's all mine because my father is Reuven. Whereas the children say, no, you are one of our brothers. And so therefore Reuven's estate goes to Shimon, and then these three will divide it equally. And then in that case, Mr. Sefek, it's only a third. And so we saw in that case that the verdict is Yachloku, they would split it. Mr. Safek would get half, and the other half is split among the sons of Shimon. Okay, good. That was the case we saw already. Now we're going to introduce a case where Reuven died, and they did the split already. And then Shimon dies. After Shimon dies, now Mr. Sefek wants to reclaim some of what he had. And he said, listen guys, you owe me something no matter what. Either I am this child of Reuven, and therefore you should give me back that half that was taken, or if I am your brothers, then I should receive 1/3 of the total of Shimon's own property plus the half that Reuven gave. So either way, you have to give me more than simply a third of what more than what I had before. And the Shimon sons say, well, no, you prove that right now Reuven's out of the picture. That verdict was finished already, right? That's done, and that money went to our father Shimon. You got your share, okay? So that case is closed. And right now, our father died. He's definitely our father. We're going to split him evenly. And you come prove that you are a child of Shimon if you want any more money, right? You are not getting $1 more at this point. And so that is the machloket. So let's see the case inside. Safek ubnei Yavam shebao lachlok b'nichsei Yavam lebatar de palag Yavam b'nichsei mitna. Right, Mr. Safek and the children of the Yavam come to split the Yavam's property, and this is after they already finished the verdict, case closed, of that the deceased brother's estate was already split between the two. Here's the two claims. The children of Yavam says, we are for sure the children of the Yavam. You are a Safek. So, you can prove that you're a 7-month-old baby from our father, and then you can take a third of the total. Otherwise, you get nothing, meaning you get nothing because nobody can prove this. Amar lehu safek manafshaychu iyachuchon ana havuli matana behadaychu v'ibad mitna ana havuli palgade palag abuchon behadai. Whereas Mr. Safek says, well, either way, you have to pay me something. Either I am your brother, and then therefore give me a third of the entire estate of Shimon, which includes the half that he received from Reuven, or if otherwise, I am my father is the deceased original brother Reuven, and therefore give me back the half that was originally taken. And so this seems to be a good claim. So what are we going to do about this? We have a machloket amoraim. Rabbi Abba Amar Rav Kam Dina. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Hadar Dina. So Rabbi Abba says that the verdict stands, the original verdict that split the Reuven's property into two stands, and that's finished. Case closed. You can't reopen that case. And now it's the Bnei Yavam who have the upper hand, right? So now this is all in the hands of Shimon. Don't give me that past history. You already got your half from that case, and so now prove that you are our brother. You can't prove it, so you get 0. That is Rabbi Abba's opinion. Rabbi Yirmiyah, however, says no. We can reconsider the original verdict, right? Now that the circumstances have changed, let's reevaluate, and open up that case again and say, oh, you know what? It was made sense when Shimon was alive that he should get half and Reuven get half. But now that he died, and there's a possibility of Mr. Safek receiving that money anyway through Shimon as one of his possible sons, or through Reuven, his possible father. So now he should get more. And yes, we do reopen the case. Okay, very interesting. So now the Gemara is going to try to argue that this machloket Amoraim is parallel to a machloket Tanaim that's found in the Mishnah in Ketuvot. Lema biplukta de admon v'rabanan kami palge. This is not about Yibum, the following case, about something completely different, about fields. Ditnan, misha alach lemedinat hayam v'abdalo derech sadehu. You have a person who owns a field. This field is surrounded by other fields on all sides. He goes away for some time. By the time he comes back, the path to his field is gone, right? He originally had a path from the main street, from the Shut HaRabim, to get to his field, because it's surrounded. So he has a right, he owned a right to walk through someone else's field in order to get to his. And so because he has that right, he keeps it. But now it's all overgrown by the time he comes back, and he doesn't know where it is. So what is the law? Admon Amar Yelech Bakesara. He can come and say, the landowner in the middle can come and say, listen, I had a right. I don't know exactly where it is, but you, the owner of the outside field, you have to give me something. So I'll take the shortest path, right? The least possible. You owe me and you have to give it to me. Chachamim say, no, the outside owner, we're going to see in a second that Chachamim would be specifically talking about when there's multiple owners all around. Everybody would agree if there's just one owner, the outside is encircled by, are all owned by one person, then yeah, he would have to give him a path, because, there was a path here, so give me a path. But if there's multiple owners, right, then each one can say, well, the path maybe was not through my property, go ask the other guy. And the other guy says, no, it wasn't through my property, go ask the other one. And so therefore, each one can say, listen, if you want to buy a new path for 100 dinar, exorbitant price, then do so. Otherwise, go fly in the air, fly over and get to your field in the middle. Not my problem, right? I don't have to give up my land for you. You can't prove that it was from my land. You don't know where it is. Okay, so now this is a machloket. We have to analyze exactly which case they're talking about, because if it's all one owner, it would make sense that the guy in the middle does have a right. If it's multiple owners, then it makes sense that the guy in the middle has no right. And so which case are they actually arguing about? So Vavinan ba, and we discussed this. Rabbanan Shapir Kamad Admon. Question to Rabbanan. Admon seems to make sense, right? Give him a field. Give him a path. He had a path here. You owe him a path, so you have to give him something. And Rav already explained there that according to Rabbanan, when do you say that you have no right? When there's 4 different owners of the fields surrounding him. It doesn't have to be 4, it could be 2, it could be 10. The point is that there's 4 directions, so we make it easy. And so that's when Rabbanan are saying that the middle guy has no right against any one of these fields owned by 4 people. Okay, if that's the case, that they're talking about different owners, then why would Admon say you have an automatic right? Who should give up their right? Why should they do that? So we're going to further limit and explain. If it's talking about 4 owners who originally bought it from 4 owners, then for sure, and also if it's 4 owners that all bought it from one person, also for sure, everyone would agree, there's no argument, that the surrounding owners can deflect the guy in the middle and say, we are 4 different people, and you have no right, you can't prove that it's my field, and so then he has to go and pay for a new path. So everyone agrees regarding that. What is the one case that they do argue about? Where originally, when they had that path, there were 4 different owners. In the meantime, one person bought all of the surrounding fields. And so now, since they're all owned by one person, this is the question. Admon savad maseh amar le mikol makom darki gabahu. Admon says, listen, I don't know which direction the original path was, but either way, you own all of the surrounding fields, and therefore you definitely owe me something, right? Doesn't matter where it was. So you have to give it to me right now. In other words, according to Admon, we do take into account the new situation, even though in the original situation there were 4 different owners and the middle guy had no claim. Now we reopen the case, right? We reopen the verdict and say, well, we're going to judge it as it is now, and right now it's one owner. So that would be Admon that says we take into account the new situation. Rabbanan savre damar le shatakt ve'ila mehadrana shetara lemarayhu ve'la maset lashtoe dina behadayhu. According to Rabbanan, the owner of the surrounding properties can say, listen, if you are be quiet and don't make a claim, then I recommend that you just be quiet and don't make a claim, and we'll settle on a fair price that I will sell you a new path. Because I have leverage against you, right? Don't make this claim. My leverage is that if you don't agree to a fair price, then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to return these the fields to their previous owners. I'll cancel what I bought, give it back to the original owners, and then you will have 0. In other words, Rabbanan are saying that the original situation sticks, and even though there's a new situation now, the owner in the middle can always say, okay, yeah, it changed in the middle and I happen to buy them, but your original path only went through one of 4 fields owned by different owners, and therefore I can always go back to that situation and give you 0. So you see that according to Rabbanan, he can claim to stick to the original situation, whereas according to Admon, you take into account the new situation that has changed. All right, so now that we conceptualize it that way, now the Gemara is going to propose Lema Rabbi Abba de'amar ke'Rabbanan ve'Rabbi Yirmiyah de'amar ke'Admon. Oh, so now we can say that Rabbi Abba, he's the one that says the original verdict stands, and therefore, in the case of the Bnei Yavam, they can say, listen, Reuven's field was split already, and right now it's our father's hands, and he's definitely our father, and you have no claim. We only judge a thing as it is right now. A little different. We judge the claim taking into account everything that happened before, and you cannot reopen that case. So therefore, because we already had that verdict and we agreed to that split, that remains, and now you have nothing. That would be the same as Rabbanan, who say that the person who owns everything on the outside says you already lost your claim to a path because it was owned by 4 different people. And even though now it's owned by one person, it doesn't matter. We don't reopen that claim. We only judge it as it already was. And so Rabbi Abba is similar to Rabbanan. On the other hand, Rabbi Yirmiyah is can be following Admon. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, no, we reassess now and forget the original verdict. It's true, the original verdict, they split it, but now we're looking at it again from this perspective that Shimon is dead, and we say, look, either way, you have a claim. Just like Admon says here, that the person in the middle says, yeah, it's true, if there was, when there were 4 different owners, I had no claim, but now there's one. So now we reopen the case and judge it again. And so both Rabbi Yirmiyah and Admon say we can reject the original situation and look at the situation as it is now. So this is kind of brilliant to compare these 2 very different cases and show that they are based on the same principle. But as brilliant as it is, we are now going to reverse that and say not necessarily so. We'd rather not have to pigeonhole each Amorah to one Tana. Every Amorah wants to be, if possible, be able to follow any of the Tanaim. So Amar Lach Rabbi Abba can reject this this label and say, no, Ana Damre Afilu Ke'admon. Really, I can say my opinion even according to Admon. Ad kan lo ka'amar Admon hatam ela mishum damar le mimma nafshach darki had gabach hu. Of Admon over there in the case of the field, he said he says it in that case because the guy in the middle can have a claim. Listen, you own all of them, and therefore, no matter what, I have a path in the middle in one of your fields, so you have to give it to me. But in the case of the Yibum, can he say such a thing? In the case of Yibum, see, it's not actually a certainty that he's coming with, but rather two uncertainties. Maybe I can inherit from Reuven, maybe I can inherit from Shimon. And therefore, these two uncertainties don't add up to the strength of a certainty that you now own all of the fields, and therefore you have to give me something. That was Rashi's explanation. Rashi, it's a little hard to figure out what exactly is the difference between the two cases. Other Rishonim explain, I think, in a clearer way, that in Admon's case, Admon is saying, listen, the middle guy can say, I never dealt with the four owners that originally. We never had a verdict that I don't have a claim on their fields. We just didn't deal with it. But now I'm dealing with you. You are the current owner. So it's not like I'm reopening up a previous verdict. Whereas in the case of the Yibum, in that case, the land was already split, right? They already, went to court and decided and split the land between the children of the Yavam. And Mr. Safek. And therefore, there you could say case is closed. So even Admon may very well agree that you don't reopen another the previous verdict. He only says his law when you can say, I'm dealing now just with you, and I don't care what happened in the past. Okay, Rabbi Yirmiyah also can say, I agree with everyone. Ana damri afilu Rabbanan, ad kan lo kamri Rabbanan hatam ela mishum damri le, ai shatakt v'ila mehadarna shetara l'marayhu, velo masid lashtoe dina behadayhu. Rabbanan say, in the case of the field, that's where the person and the person outside owns outside fields can say, listen, I recommend that you be quiet. And just agree to whatever, a fair price. Otherwise, I can go back to I can give it back to the original owners, right? I can sell it back or cancel these sales and, maybe cancel the sales because, you didn't tell me when you sold it to me that there was a path here. And so I can go back to the original situation. But you cannot say that. Or in the Yibum case, you can't undo a death, right? And it was already divided, right? This inheritance was already divided. You can't go put it back into the estate of the deceased, right? That does not work. There's no one to deal with. And so therefore, Yirmiyah says, I could agree also with Rabbanan, and therefore this distinction, although it is a nice and interesting distinction to compare these two machalokot, they are not necessarily parallel each with the other. We now continue with a few more cases that are less complicated. Safek v'yavam shebao lachlok b'nichse saba. The grandfather in this case died, and so as before, where we had originally Reuven married to Miriam, and he dies, and Shimon jumps the gun and takes Miriam after a couple of months, and we don't know if this Mr. Safek is the child of Reuven or the child of Shimon. The grandfather here was the grandfather, Mr. Safek, had been alive, and now he died. And the question, who will inherit him? Will it be his son, Shimon? The Shimon and Reuven would split it, but then the question is, where does Mr. Safek fall in? If he's the child of Reuven, then he gets half. If he's the child of Shimon, he gets 0, because Shimon's alive, so Shimon gets everything at that point. So let's see. Safek Amar Hai Gavra Bar Mitnahu. Mr. Safek says that person, meaning himself, I am the son of the deceased brother Reuven, Upalka Didihu, and therefore I get half of the inheritance. Yavam Amar At Berai Didi At Velet lach ve'lamidi. The Yavam says, no, you are my son from 7-month pregnancy, and therefore I am the lone child, surviving child of my father. Reuven has no children, so he gets 0. I get everything, and you get 0. So what's the verdict? Have Yavam vadai v'safek safek v'en safek mosi mideh vadai. So we know that the Yavam is for sure the child of Yaakov, so he has a definite claim. Mr. Safek has only an uncertain claim, and when you have a certain versus uncertain, the certain wins. Shimon can say, go prove that you are the child of Reuven and not my son. I think you're my son. Okay. So that's a pretty simple case, but now it gets a little bit more complicated. Safek ubnei Yavam sheba'u lachlok benichse saba. In this case, we are going to go ahead one generation, and Shimon already died, and then Yaakov dies here. So now Reuven and Shimon, the original sons of Yaakov, both are dead, and so now the grandchildren will inherit. So you have here Shimon, Moshe and Aaron say, yeah, our father, let's see the claims, right? Let's see the two sides. Safek amar hahu gavra bar mitnahu palgadi dihu. So Mr. Safek says that I am the child of Reuven, the original deceased brother, and therefore I get half of the inheritance, right? I share half. Both of you get the other half. The other brother says, no, you are our brother, right? Welcome, long lost brother. And therefore you only get one part, meaning you only get a third instead of a half. So what do we do in this case? What's the verdict? Well, let's see what they agree on. Everyone agrees that these Shimon's sons get half. Right, because that's Safek's claim is I get half, you get half. So give them that half. And they agree that Mr. Safek gets at least a third, right? Because if they are brothers, then they would get a third. So give him a third, right? So give everyone what they have, what they for sure deserve. Tilta tekamodu le shakal. And then what's left over? Pashlehu danka. We have 1/6 left over. Have mamon amuta b'safek v'cholkin. So take that 6 and split it a 12th this way and a 12th that way, and you end up with 5/12 going to Mr. Safek and 7/12 going to the children of Shimon. Okay, sounds like a fair deal. And last two cases that are really the same. Saba v'yavam b'nichse Safek, or Saba v'Safek b'nichse Yavam, have mamon muta b'Safek v'cholkin. If we have the grandfather and the Yavam, when the Safek dies, or the Avam dies, and now the Safek, Saba and Safek want to inherit. In other words, it looks like this. Here, right, Mr. Safek died, and he has no children, assuming he never had children or anything. So now, on the one hand, Shimon claims, I'm the father. So it goes directly to me. Whereas the grandfather says, no, Reuven was the father, and since he dies, now it all goes to me. So this is, neither of them have a definite claim, so that would be an equal claim, and they split it. Or similarly, if Reuven and Shimon die, and then now Shimon, so what happens to Shimon's property? So Safek says, I am the son of Shimon, right? And it goes to the son, so I get everything. The grandfather says, no, you are the child of Reuven, and Shimon has no other children, so I get everything. And again, here, each has a 50-50 claim with no vadai, and so the verdict in both those cases would be that they split it evenly. The next Mishnah continues with the theme of inheritance and who deserves the property, and talks about a case of Shomeret Yavam Shenaflu La Nechasim, a regular case of Ibum, where a woman was married, her husband dies without children, and now she's waiting for the Yavam to come and do Ibum or Chalitza. During this period, she's kind of that in between. Is she like married to the Yavam or not? and while she's waiting, she receives some property, maybe from an inheritance or in some other way. Now, normally, if someone was fully married and the wife receives property, then the husband has control over it while they're married. Then when they get divorced or he dies, she then will retake control of that property. But here, that's the question. Do we consider, since there is a zikah here and she's kind of like married almost, awaiting, so it's considered like the Yavam is her husband and he has control? Or do we say, no, there's no marriage yet, and so the husband does not have control. She can do whatever she wants with this property. That's the question. Well, in that case, it's easy. Modim bet Shammai u bet Hillel shemocheret venotenet vekayam. Everyone agrees in that case that it's hers. She can buy, sell it, or give it away, and whatever she does, she can do it lechatechila, and that is valid. So therefore, we consider this the zikah relationship not to be like a marriage, in this case, while she is alive. Now, second case, meta. What if while she's awaiting yibum, she dies? Then what should we do? Number one, two questions with the ketuvah. The ketuvah would have to be paid by her original husband's estate, which then goes to the yavam. And so who will keep that money? She doesn't get it because she's dead. But does the husband keep it? The husband or her family keeps it, her father or her side. That's number one question. And property that she brought into the marriage, that is hers, that she should take back out when the marriage is done. Who will get that? Is this man, the Yavam, considered like the husband? And if they were married, then the husband inherits a wife? Or do you say, no, they were not actually married, and therefore that property goes back to her family? That's the question. And here there is a machloket. Bet Shammai omerim yachloku yorsheh ha'baal im yorsheh ha'av. Bet Shammai says, well, it's a safek. I don't know whose it belongs to, what the status is. It's an uncertainty, and therefore they will split. Yorsheh ha'baal, that means the yavam, if he's alive, or if he's dead, then his heirs. Will split it with Yorsheh ha'av. This refers to the father of the woman. Him, if he's alive, or the heirs of him, right? Assuming that she herself did not have other children previously. And so we split it 50-50. That's Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel says, leave everything where it is, right? We have the principle. Since it's a safek, let's see who by default has ownership of these things. Ketuvah bechezkat yorsheh ha'baal. The ketuvah is paid by the estate of the deceased brother that goes to the yavam. And therefore, the yavam right now has that money, and now that she died, they should keep that money. Nechasim hanichnasim v'yotzin ima bechezkat yorsheh ha'av. Whereas the property, when the original husband dies, so now this is her property, right? It belongs to her. She can do what she wants with it. That was the resha while she's alive. She can sell it or whatever, or give it away. And so since it's in her possession, so then when she dies, it remains in her possession and now goes to her family. So everything remains where it was before. That's the opinion of Bet Hillel. One last case. Kenasa. If the Yavam actually did yibum and brought her in and took her as a wife, now she is fully like a wife for all matters. Except that the payment of the original ketubah from the deceased brother, that will be paid for from the property of the original husband. This last point in the Mishnah will be discussed further in the Gemara later on. But right now, we're going to focus on a different detail. We're going to ask one question and bring 4 answers to it, 2 today and 2 tomorrow. The question is regarding Bet Shammai's opinion in these first 2 cases that seem inconsistent. Bet Hillel is consistent. He says that while she is alive, she's the Shomeret Yavam. If she gets property, she has full control over it. It's hers. Good. And then if should she die, well, then it goes to her family. That's consistent, right? It was hers. She had control over it. She dies, it goes to her family. That's all Bet Hillel. That's fine. But Bet Shammai is the question. Because Bet Shammai on the one hand says, well, she is alive. Yes, she has full control over it. It's hers. Yet Bet Shammai says when she dies, then she only gets half of it. It's only Safek hers. So what's the reason that for the inconsistency between the Resha and the Sefa? The Gemara asks as follows: Maishan HaResha de lo palig, Maishan HaSefa de pelige. What's the difference in the Resha where Bet Shammai does not argue with Bet Hillel? He says, yeah, it's all the women's. And in the Sefa, he argues with Bet Hillel and says, Safek, I don't know. So first answer. Amar Ola. Resha de nafla kishehi arusa, vesefa de nafla kishehi nesua. Ula is introducing an okimta into it, and the difference between the Resha and the Sefa is not only that in the Resha she's alive and the Sefa she's dead, but also in the Resha she was only arusa to the original husband who deceased, Reuven. She only did kiddushin with him and never nisuin. Therefore, kiddushin is a lower category. Sefa is where she actually was fully married to the deceased. So what's the difference? Kasabar ula zikat arusa osa safek arusa. Okay, this is very cool. According to him, if she was only betrothed, engaged to the original husband, then when he dies, her zikah to the yavam is only at the level of an arusa. And regarding an arusa, the husband does not have control of the property of his wife, does not have full control, and therefore this zikah is a lower level zikah. And that's why in the Resha, while in the Resha she's alive, happens to be alive, but the main point is that zikah is only an arusa level zikah, and that's why the husband is not yet a full husband, so she retains control. In the Sefa, that's talking about a case where she was fully married to the original husband who died, and in that case, zikat nisua osa safek nisua. When Reuven dies, now her zikat to Shimon, the Yavam, takes the value of like a nisua, except that it's a safek nisua. Right here also, it's not a full arusa because it's only a zikah, so therefore it's called a safek arusa. When she was arusa to the original husband, the zikah is a safek arusa, lower level, and when she was fully married to the original husband, then her zikah with the yavam is safek nisua. Okay, we're going to explain now. So this explains the contradiction between the case 1 and case 2. Now we're going to explain why he has to emphasize that it's a safek only. Zikat arusa osa safek arusa. Di sakadatech vadai arusa modim bet Hillel shemocheret venotenet vekayam. It has to be that when a zikah, when she was only an arusa to the original husband, is considered safek. Because if it was a for sure arusa, then look at the Resha, right? That's the case of the Resha's arusa, where it says Bet Hillel, they agree that she can sell and give and everything is okay. Right? Everyone agrees that it's totally hers. But hold on, that would not be consistent with another Mishnah in Ketubot, where it says, V'hatenan, naflu la nechasim mishenit aresa. A regular, not a yibum case over there in Ketubot, just a regular case. A woman does kiddushin with a man does kiddushin with a woman, and while she is before the nisuin, she gets some property. Bet Shammai omrim timkor. So Bet Shammai says, yeah, she can sell it if she wants. It's hers. Bet Hillel omrim lo timkor. But Bet Hillel says, no, she cannot. She cannot do a lecha techila, but they agree. But the avad, if she went ahead and sell it, then it is valid. Ela shemamina zikat arusa ose safek arusa. According to Bet Hillel, as recorded in that Mishnah in Ketuvah, when someone is a full arusa, Bet Hillel says that she cannot lichatechila, she cannot sell it. Right? It's gonna be going to the husband soon, so she doesn't have full rights to it. So therefore, in our Mishnah, it says that when she is an arusa, Bet Hillel agrees that she does have full rights. How do you have full rights? I thought even if it's an arusa, she does not have full rights to it. It must be that zikat arusa is only safek. Because it's only safek, so then she gets the full rights to it. And so this is Ula's opinion, that across the board, for Bet Hillel, for Bet Shammai, everyone says that zikat arusa is safek arusa. He has to say that it can't be a full arusa, because a full arusa, then Bet Hillel here would be inconsistent with Bet Hillel in our Mishnah. Okay, and now we're going to explain why does Ula think that zikat nesuah says safek nesuah, that also has to be only a safek in order to be consistent. Di salkadatach vaday nesuah, Bet Shammai omrim yachloku yorsheh habal im yorsheh ha'av. If you would say that it's a zikah from a marriage that was a full marriage, and now the zikah is considered like a full nesuah, then, well, let's see. Bet Shammai says in our Mishnah that they split, right? It's considered, this is the second clause, which Ula made Kimta was talking about Nisu'ah. And when she dies, so they split it, his family and her family. Hold on, Vehatanan. Nafluna nechasim mishe niset. That same Mishnah back in Ketuvot talks about another case where a woman is married and she receives some property while she's married. In that case, both Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai agree, Bet Shammai is the key here, that if she went ahead and sold that property, and during the marriage that she received during the marriage, then the husband can say no good, right? She did not have a right to sell it because if they're fully married, then the husband has full rights over the property to decide what to do with it, and that would contradict what he says here, because here, when she has a zikah of nisuin, a zikat nisuah with the yavam, Bet Shammai says that they split it, not that he gets the whole thing. So ela shema mina zikat nisuah osa safek nisuah, and therefore we can conclude that this is why Ula has to say that each one is graded. So to summarize Ula's opinion, whatever the original relationship was with the deceased, nesuah, arusa or nesuah, that so to her zikah with the yavam will be also graded, but one level down, safek arusa or safek nesuah. And so now that we understand his opinion, right, ela shema mina zikat nesuah safek nesuah, that we conclude that. And this is how Ula interpreted our Mishnah. The contradiction between clause 1 and clause 2 was, they're talking about two cases. Clause 1 is arusa, and that's why it's only like a safek arusa, and that's why she has full control, according to Bet Shammai. And the clause 2 is she is a safek nesuah, and that's why she splits everything with the husband's family. Okay, good. So that's Ula. Now, Amar le Rabba is going to challenge it. Admi palge begufa la'achar mita liflegu bechayeha ul perot. Hold on. If the difference is according to you between arusa and nisuah, so then that's the main difference, and the Mishnah would not have to say that the resha is when she's alive and the sefa is when she died. Why do you have to go to such an extreme and say now that she died, right? Since your main distinction is arusa and nisuah, why don't you keep both clauses more consistent and say she's alive in both of them? And right. So instead of dealing with disagreeing with the property itself, and after she died, and that's why the property is in limbo, says that she's alive, and the dispute is over the produce of the property, right? Because whoever owns it will be able to receive the produce during that time. But you can have a similar case while she's alive, and therefore Rava proposes a different solution. Ela amar Rabba, idi v'idi denafla kishehi nesuah, v'zikat nesuah osa safek nesuah. Rabbi explains that both clauses of the Mishnah are talking about where she had been married to the deceased brother, not arusa nisua. It's all consistent nisua, and he agrees with the principle that zikat nisua is only a safek nisua. It's not like being the zikat to the yavam is not full marriage, but only an uncertain marriage, only a doubt, and therefore we can explain both clauses according to Bet Shammai. Resha Tihi Kayama, in the Resha where she is alive, Havale'ihi Vadai Ve'inhu Safek, Ve'in Safek Mosi Mide Vadai. In that case, she is a Vadai, she is alive, and even during a marriage, she actually owns the property. It's just that the husband controls it and can use the fruit of it. So she's alive, and she definitely owns the property, and therefore it makes sense that she's closest to it and will retain ownership and rights. Whereas the Yavam and his heirs are only safek. Maybe this is a marriage, maybe it's not a marriage. And so they, with their uncertain claim, cannot remove it from the certain claim of the wife when she's alive. However, sefa demeta halalu ben lirash ve'halalu ben lirash ve'achaloku. Once she dies, then it goes into a state. It's not hers. It goes into her estate, which is a new entity, kind of like a corporate entity, and therefore both claimants are equally uncertain. Her family says, "Oh, this should go to us," and the Avam's family said, "No, it should go to us." But neither one has a certain claim, and therefore they will split it. And so, good. This is seems like a simpler way to explain the Mishnah. All right. Abaye. However, Abaye, who's coming next, is going to challenge Rabbah. Well, Bet Shammai en safek mosi mideh vadai. Hold on, is that true? Is that a general principle that, according to Bet Shammai, where a vadai trumps over a safek, and safek will not split with a vadai? We have another case altogether in Baba Batra, where we see that's not so, according to Bet Shammai. V'hatenan, nafal habayit alav ve'al aviv. A house falls on a father and son, and it's not clear who died first in that fall. Alav al morishav, or equivalently upon a person and someone who he inherits. But if it's not his father, it doesn't matter, whoever it is. Vayu alav kituvat isha u'ba'al chov, and this son owed money. He owed money for a kituvat to his wife. He owed money to debtors. He has no money on his own, so they cannot collect from him. But now that they both died, the order does matter. Yosheh ha'av omrim, so those who would inherit the father besides the son, other people, other sons, whoever else that he decided to give his money to, his inheritance to, they say, haben met rishon ve'achar kach met av. They say, we want to claim that the son died first, so he's out of the picture, and therefore the father's money, none of it went to that son, all of it goes to us, the other heirs. Ubal chov omer ha'av met rishon ve'achar kach met haben. Whereas the debtors who want to collect from the son, they want to claim that the father died first, and therefore the son at that moment inherited the property from his father, and now, since he owes us, now that even though the son died, his inheritance we should be able to collect from. Okay, so now we know no one knows who died first, so whose claim, what's going to be the verdict? Bet Shammai omerim yachloku, uBet Hillel omerim nechasim bechezkatan. Bet Shammai says they split evenly. We'll discuss that in a second. And Bet Hillel says that you leave the property where it is. Well, where is it? The last that we knew, it belonged to the father. Therefore, let it go directly to the father's heirs, and we cannot assume that it went to the son and then went to the debtors. Right? That would be two steps. Meaning, at that time, when the father and son both die, the debtors for sure did not have it in their hands yet, and so therefore the debtor's claim is of a lower status. They don't have access to it at all. The father's heirs have a more a definite status quo right to it. That's Bet Hillel. Okay, so Bet Shammai says they should split it. Now, why? Ve'hahacha yorsheh ha'av vadai. The inheritor, the heirs of the father have a definite right to it. Right? They are the immediate heirs. Ubal chov safek, whereas the debtors, the claimants, that is uncertain. They didn't have claim to it. They didn't have access to it immediately. It has to go through the son first, and who knows? We don't know if the son was alive at the time or not. And yet, nevertheless, Bet Shammai, look at this, says Yachloku. They split it. Who splits it? The father's heirs and those to the people that came to collect their money, who are not heirs, and are a safek. Yet a safek can take the money from a vadai, at least split it, all right? And he treats safek and vadai the same and splits it. So here we see that Bet Shammai does not agree to the principle that and safek mosi mide vadai. He does mosi. So the answer is Kasebre Bet Shammai shtad hamed legabot kegabui dameh. He must hold the opinion that when you have a bill of debt, it's that's waiting to be paid, it's considered as if it's already collected. That these people to whom money is owed, as soon as the son receives any property, they immediately have a lien on that property, right? That property is already collected like it's theirs, and therefore they actually have equal access to the father's property. When the father dies, we're not sure what the order is. If the father died first and then the son, well then we go to the then if the father died first, then the property would go to the son, and immediately that property would be collectible, already collected by the people that are owed money. Whereas if the son died first, it would go straight to the father's heirs. But those are equal claims, and therefore it's not safek and vadai, but it's safek and safek. And that's why Bet Shammai says here, says in that case, yachloku, but in other cases he would say that, and safek mosi mi de vadai. Okay, now one more point here regarding Bet Shammai. How can we prove that he has this opinion that shtad hamed legabot kegabui dameh, that if you have a contract, it's a lien on you're owed something, it's like it's already collected? We can prove it from the following case regarding a sota. Titnan in Masechet Sota Mishnah metu ba'alehen ad shelo shatu. A woman who the man suspected of her and warned her, and then she goes ahead and she secludes anyway with that man, and so now she has to come and drink the sota water. But in the meantime, that husband dies. So what happens? Can she collect the ketuvah? If she was unfaithful, she does not deserve the ketuvah. If she was faithful, then she does deserve the ketuvah. But we're not sure. She didn't drink the sota water to verify it, and she can't go and drink it now. So what will be the status? So his heirs say, well, money belongs to us, and let her prove that she was faithful. She says, no, I was faithful, I deserve the ketubah. Here I have a shtad. That's why it's relevant to a shtad. So let's see. Bet Shammai omerim notlot ketubatan ve'enan shotot. Bet Shammai says, give her the money, she gets the ketuvah, she does not have to drink a sotah. If he were alive, he have to go to do the sotah. Now that she's dead, sotah is gone, and she's back to normal, she receives her ketuvah. Bet Hillel omrim o shotot o lo notelot ketubatan. Bet Hillel says she has a choice. She can either drink it now, prove her innocence, and receive the ketuvah, or forego the ketuvah. First, a clarification on Bet Hillel. O shotot. She can drink now? No, the pasuk says the husband has to bring her to come drink, and he's not around anymore. He can't do sotah after he's dead. What we meant is, since she can no longer drink, therefore she does not get the ketuvah. Okay, so that's Bet Hillel. But here's the proof. Here's the proof for Bet Shammai. Safek zenai, safek lo zenai. Now we have a 50-50 question. I don't know if she was faithful or not. Does she deserve the ketubah or not? And yet, bekate safek umosi mide vadai. And now you're telling me not only does it split 50-50, she gets the entire ketubah from the heirs, and the heirs have possession of the inheritance, and so they're the vadai, and she's going to take it all? That doesn't make any sense. Ela shema'mina shetad ha'omed legabot kegabui dameh. Rather, it only makes sense if we say that a bill of debt, and the ketuvah is a bill of debt, is as if it is already collected, and therefore she actually has possession of that money, even though it wasn't paid yet. It's as if she has possession of it, and therefore she is in fact like the vadai, and she doesn't have to prove her innocence. She can be paid the money of the ketubah. We're gonna end this discussion of the opinion of Rabbah with just two more queries regarding Abaye, the questioner. He kept questioning Rabbah, and why didn't he ask from a better source? So what we have so far is that according to Rabbah, he can explain the contradiction in the Mishnah of Bet Shammai, that he would say that the Resha is talking about a case where she is alive and therefore she has a vadai, and safek mosi midei vadai. The avam has only safek and she's alive, so she has control of it, and that explains the resha. But that assumes that Bet Shammai agrees with the rule of en safek mosi midei vadai. And now we question that from the case of Baba Batra, and we answered it. Okay, good. Because that Baba Batra is because Bet Shammai thinks a shtad is like already collected. How do you know he thinks that? We brought a proof from Sotah. But now we're going to ask, hold on, why did you follow that line of questioning in the first place? Why didn't you say, V'Abaye lo tve meha? How come Abaye did not question from Sotah itself? In other words, when you started your line of questioning from Baba Batra, you were assuming that you didn't know that Bet Shammai says that the shtad is like it's already collected. And therefore, the case of Sotah is a case of safek collecting from a vadai. She, the woman, this Sotah, is safek. Perhaps she was faithful. Perhaps she was not, and she is receiving the ketubah from the other estate, even though she cannot. She's a safek, and the estate is the for sure. And yes, she collects it. So that's the question. How come we don't ask from Sotah? And the answer is Dilma ketubat isha shane mishum hayna. Now, if we asked from the case of Sotah, you might have answered, the reason why the rabbis let her get not only half of the ketubah, which would be the case in Safek, we let her get the whole thing, even though she's Safek, taking from Vadai. We would have said maybe that's just to increase her desirability. We want to help out the woman, right? Woman's empowerment here, so that she'll collect the ketubah and then she'll have that money. She'll be more desirable to be able to get remarried. That would be the reason why we gave her the ketubah in that case, but we wouldn't be able to prove from there that safek mosi midei vadai, so it wouldn't be a good question, and that's why we didn't ask from that case. All right, fine. But last point, velotve ketubah de matnitin. Why didn't you ask Abaye? Why didn't you ask a question to Rabbah from our very Mishnah, from the Sefa? The Sefa, there's the case where the Yevamot died, and there the Bet Shammai says they split it. But why split it? It's even split the ketuvah. Why split the ketuvah? The Yavam's family, right? The husband's family received it as heirs to Reuven, and therefore they are the vadai. Her yorshim are safek. They have to go and prove that this zikah was nothing, and so they are the safek. And yet Bet Shammai says that her family gets half the ketuvah, even though the husband's family is the vadai. And so we answer, La lo peligi. In fact, you thought all along that according to Bet Shammai, sounds like the Peshat of the Mishnah, Bet Shammai says split the ketuvah and the property. But not true. Bet Shammai actually does not disagree with Bet Hillel regarding the ketuvah. The ketuvah stays with the husband's family. They don't have to split that part. Now we ask, Velo v'hakatane. Hold on, that doesn't fit with the words. Read the Mishnah. Meta. מה יעשה בכתובתה ובנכסים הנכנסים ויוצאים עמה? The Mishnah said, if she died, second case, what should we do with the ketuvah and with the property that she brings into the marriage and can take out of the marriage? Bet Shammai אומרים, יחלוקו יורשי הבעל עם יורשי האב. Bet Shammai says regarding both of these cases that they should split it. Bet Hillel omrim nechasim bechezkatan. Bet Hillel says you leave it where it is de facto. So you see, Bet Shammai says you split both, including the ketuvah. So we can we can repunctuate the Mishnah as follows: Hachika amar meta mayase beketuvata ushvaka. What should we do if she died? What should we do with the ketuvah? The Tana did not answer that question. Question mark, leave that aside. Second question, nechasim nichnasim v'yotzim ma. What about and the property? Oh, the property that Bet Shammai said, Bet Shammai yachloku yorshei habal im yorshei ha'av. There he said that the heirs of the husband should split it with the heirs of the wife and her father. Bet Hillel says leave it where it is. But Bet Shammai actually only opined about the property. He did not say anything about the ketuvah, and so regarding the ketuvah, he actually agrees with Bet Hillel. So that's why we didn't ask from the Mishnah. In fact, the Mishnah would not be a good question. Bet Shammai does not think that she gets the ketuvah out of a safek. Rav Asher matniteina name daika. Rav Asher says this. We're not only forcing this into the Mishnah. A precise reading of the Mishnah would say so. Tekatane yachloku yorshei habal im yorshei ha'av. It says that the heirs of the husband can split it along with the heirs of the father, meaning of the wife's family. And it does not say the other way around, that the wife's family will inherit along with the husband. In the first formulation, when it says Yorshei Ha'av, so that applies to the property, which is in the hands of the wife, and therefore in the hands of her heirs. And so there it says, the husband's family can can split along with them. And so that makes sense regarding property. And it does not say that the heirs of her heirs will also take that of the Baal of the husband, and that would, if it said that would apply to the ketuvah, which belongs to the husband, and then you would say, her family also takes of that. It doesn't say that, and so therefore from that order, it's clear that it's talking about the property and not the ketubah. Shema mina. And now we explained all the reasons why Abaye asked from the case of Baba Batra regarding inheritance. And that concludes the second explanation of the Mishnah. And on the next daf, we'll see two more explanations for the contradiction, to resolve the contradiction between the Resha and Sefa for Bet Shammai. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen. Amen.